Estava aqui a ver um vídeo aqui
Já
no
sou,
Insta.
já estou aqui.
É o quê? É um tipo, é um
Sim.
gajo que está a assaltar o outro está a ir a ver aquelas caixas do banco. Ver quanto
Aqui.
dinheiro é que tem a conta. O
Olá,
gajo já chega
Tiago.
lá,
Como é que isso?
passa-me todo o teu dinheiro.
Está
Quando o
aqui o
gajo olha para o
Tiago.
ecrã,
Então,
61 cêntimos.
peraí.
Isso é triste, isso é só triste. Ó, Capitão América, sai daí!
Não,
Sai!
não.
Ó Zé, fogo, não consigo lançar já. Ó Zé, não sejas quadradinho.
Eu sou o Capitão América, faço o que eu quiser.
Olha que faz. Ai,
Não,
ai, ai. Sim, eu faço o que eu quiser, eu faço o que eu
não,
quiser.
não.
Sim.
Oh, uma coisita.
O gajo.
I'm going to lançar. Show starts in.
Faltam 2 minutos.
Moia Shinderu,
Lembra estes
Nani?
gajos nas luzes?
El espetáculo comenzará en Ayaro Oi Yepe. Carinha torcida e o caraças. O espetáculo iniciará tra Gosterinini Blasmlalin. El espetáculo. Como é?
O Tiago só
Ok,
está
tá bem,
parado.
já li. Árabe. Le espetáculo comece danos. Posso até que por caso usar.
É, não dá para dançar, que triste. Olha uma Renegade, palhaço.
Ó, vou só. Agora só porque me apetece vou ouvir uma música.
Não,
Antes do comentário.
eu já vi 40 segundos.
Till I collapse.
Oh, meu. Ele está-me a querer dar clickbait. Não, clickbait, Phonics.
Estás a fazer vídeo?
Não, estou a fazer o quê? Eu já disse que ia começar. Eu disse clickbait e não coisa copyright. Olha, do nada fez luz, olha que fixe. Olha, mano, what the fuck? Olha a lua, isto está a passar bem rápido, what the fuck?
Yeah. Oh,
Olha, agora ficou ali. Tá-se.
vai começar. Começa, filme. Eu vou para a linha da frente.
Porra de susto, mano.
Che.
Hello, I'm Van Jones. I am an author, I'm an attorney, I'm the founder of a bunch of not-for-profit organizations. I'm also a TV host. But the most important thing I can tell you about myself right now, I am a black man in America in 2020. And that's a lot. And I'm raising 2 black boys in the United States of America. And I think we're at a moment where we can actually have a conversation about what that actually means. You know, black culture is celebrated. Black culture is beloved. The black experience that gives rise to that culture, I think is often disrespected, is dismissed, is minimized, or it's just not well understood. But I think we are now at a moment where there's a shift. We're going to have an extraordinary experience together today. We're going to do this town hall. It's called We the People. And what we want you to understand is we aren't just talking to talk. We want to talk so you can take action. And this is going to be an interactive experience. We're going to give you tools, information that you can use in the real world. We want you to screenshot stuff. We want you to invite people into this conversation because that's really, I think, what's needed. We need a bigger conversation, and we're going to use technology to do it. You know, for me, black lives have always mattered. That's not new. Black lives have mattered from the beginning of time. What's new is the willingness of people to talk about it. And we have an opportunity to amplify the discussion and to move things forward, especially today. This town hall we're doing, We the People, is going to have some of the biggest voices for change in the country, all in the palm of your hand,
Oh, mano, que
including
chaves.
Killer Mike, who
Tô
is
a meter à
just a
frente.
legend in my mind. Jamel Hill is going to be here. We're also going to hear from Elaine Welteroth.
Mais
Now,
Capitão América.
she's an author, but she's already made history. And she's made history because in the history of Condé Nast, with all the magazines they own and control, only 2 people have ever been named editor-in-chief, and she is one of them. So please welcome to this conversation, Elaine Welteroth.
Tiraram uma skin da loja,
Look, I am so happy that I get a chance to have this conversation with Elaine. I mean, this sister is just bad. She's bad. She's a New York Times bestselling author, award-winning journalist. She's been a judge on the new Project Runway. I mean, she messed with Michelle Obama. She's just bad. So,
Michelle Obama.
I want to talk to you about this moment. It's just been such a mix of inspiring
Olha, este lugar
protests
aqui é o melhor lugar. Este aqui é o
killings and
melhor
stuff
lugar
like
para ver,
that.
Tiago.
Talk to us
Anda cá.
about your range of
Eu pensei que ia
emotion
ver aqui.
over this past period of what I call this great awakening around justice.
It's been really heavy. It's been really emotional. You know,
Este aqui é o melhor
this
sítio de
is
todos.
not new for
Vem
Black
para aqui.
people in America, right? We have been grieving
Yeah.
for a long time around these same kinds of senseless murders. I wrote about, you know, Philando Castile's murder, which really represented in my book, and I wrote about it from the perspective of being one of very few Black people in the office at the time when I was so devastated. So it was so hard to get out of bed that morning, let alone proceed as business as usual.
Pode vir
And
para
I
aqui,
wrote
Tiago,
about
anda.
what it was like coming into the office that day, expecting or anticipating
Só
that
para
other
aqui, só
people
para aqui.
might be feeling some of
Vê
what
se
I was
melhor.
feeling, just as humans, as, you know,
Não
feeling
sei se já
fucking
reparaste,
humans
tipo, olha.
and feeling like
Eh,
everyone was able
olha
to
aqui.
move on like business as
Branco,
usual. It feels
branco,
so
que és
relevant
tu,
once again
black
now,
sou eu.
thinking, you know, 4 years later,
Uh,
here we
yeah.
are again, but the difference is that the response from
Não tenho nada
the
contra.
rest of the community, folks who are
Também eu não.
non-Black, are finally seeing this moment as a wake-up call to get off the sidelines and to get involved and invested in this fight for justice. So I can say that since being in the streets and attending a number of protests, something different in the air this
Pensava
time.
que a
There are a
skin ia
lot
ser
of
diferente.
emotions I think
Desculpa
we're
aí,
all
Ruger.
moving through, or trying to move through to
Okay.
get towards the
E estava a
collective
tentar pôr
action that we
uma
all
skin
need
de
to
cor.
take. There is so much work for all of us. So I think that pressure, we're
Olha,
feeling that
sabes um
weight,
conjunto bom para
but I
fazer?
think we're also feeling empowered that this time
Tens,
has
tens
to
a
be
Iris.
different. It has to be different.
Nope.
You've been on this. I mean, you really
Tens
have
aquelas
been
asas tipo às cores.
not just an inspiration,
O neon, yeah.
but you've been offering really
E
education
essa
to a whole new
Iris
generation
fazia bom combo.
through Teen Vogue. And you were doing it when it was, now it's trendy,
Então é as
now it's
asas.
popular,
O que
but you
faz
were
bom
doing
combo é
it when
este.
it wasn't trendy.
Espera, rápido,
When it
rápido,
was
que eu não
kind of
quero perder o
shocking
filme.
to see Teen Vogue
Aqui.
taking on these issues.
Isto é
Why
bom
did you
combo.
make that
Isto aqui é
choice? Because
combo
you're
do
saying
caraças.
other people now are
Olha,
going to have to make similar choices to be a
Também é
little
bom.
bit more brave and bold,
Yeah.
but you were doing it when it wasn't cool. Why? And talk about that.
By speaking just about fashion, we were ignoring the range of interests that were central to them, the issues that matter to them in the world, and
Já
so
estou, sabes o que é que eu não ia
made
dizer?
sure that we were creating more of an
Que
intersectional,
quando a
feminist
skin do Aquaman
focus,
vier,
and
pronto,
that
quando acabares de fazer as
included
missões e tiveres a skin,
and pop culture,
deve ir para a loja
but
a
that
skin
also
do Arraia
spoke
Negra.
to, you know, intersectional feminism and social justice issues.
eu queria
Black
que
Lives
a
Matter.
skin do
You're
Capitão
right that there
Frio
was no
viesse.
model for success for that at the
Não,
time.
deve
There were a
vir
lot of
quando,
people that were
quando
like,
vier o
oh,
Flash
Teen
vier,
Vogue?
essa skin deve vir.
Politics,
Yeah.
issues, like and we got pushback. You know, folks
Mano,
thought
eu
it
juro que
wasn't
eu
our
quero ter
place.
muita. Se vier a
But
skin do
the
Flash, eu vou
reality
comprá-la.
is that young people
Eu
have been
não.
at the forefront of
Eu
social
adoro.
justice
É
issues
o meu herói favorito.
for
Se houvesse o do
generations.
Capitão
It
Frio,
was
eu talvez
certainly,
comprasse,
I wouldn't say
talvez.
scary, but there was an uncertainty about how it would pan
Espera,
out.
Capitão
But we
Frio
knew that we had to do the right
ou
thing,
da
and
Nevasca?
we felt like we had to be a part of the
Capitão
right
Frio.
side of history. And I'm very proud to say that we have
Sabes que o
been,
Capitão
and
Frio
I'm
faz
so
time
proud of the
com a
team there that's
Nevasca.
leading that
Porque são
charge
dois no
today.
mesmo.
But you're right in that I think a
Yeah.
lot of companies are now confronting that same reckoning of what do we mean now? How do we mean more to our community? How do we right size to make sure that we're meeting this moment and that we are on the right side of history and that we are better serving our community and our audience, our consumers.
Well, let's talk about that though, because you can actually give some advice to people who are working at these brands, whether they're at the top or whether they're the intern. You know, these brands are going to now have to do some of what you've already done. I mean, when you're a pioneer, that means you've been there, done that. What do these brands need to do to get relevant and to catch up to this moment?
So there's 3 steps I would say that any individual
Não.
corporation can follow. First of all, you have to take inventory of where you are. You can't be a part of a solution if you don't recognize how you are part of the problem.
Tiago,
You better
And
preach.
so
Can you say that one more time? Just preach.
olha aqui.
I think like
Peraí.
nobody wants to say they're racist. Nobody wants to
Sem atropelar
raise their
ninguém.
hand and say I haven't done my part here, or I recognize that I could do better.
Olha aqui, olha aqui.
And so it's I think important to just
Eu tô aqui,
acknowledge
olha as minhas asas.
That's step one.
what
Sim.
you play, what part have you been playing in this, and take
Sabes
inventory.
que isso
What
faz
is the
quando
complexion of your
tu
newsroom
tipo
look
te
like? Who's in
agachas?
your boardroom? Who has those
E
board
me-
seats? And let's look at every level of management,
E
all
mira.
the way down to the the intern level. Take an honest assessment of where we are.
Mas tipo, olha,
And I
clica de
don't mean just
quadrado.
looking at your campaigns. And so
Primeiro
we have to
miras e
push
clicas
ourselves
quadrado.
further. And so
Vai
that's
ficar
part of
no
step
cinema
one.
e
Is
agora
taking
olha. É bué da
Step 2,
fixe.
take ownership, acknowledging where you need to change, where you need to do better. And then the third step is take action. Do better. Commit to being a part of solutions that are going
vou para o melhor
to
sítio
move
aqui.
us from where we are to a better, more equitable
Estou no
future.
melhor sítio,
So,
olha.
for example, Sephora said they're going to give 15% of their shelf space to Black-owned brands. Now, I think to me, that's a lot. I mean, does that strike you as too much,
Tiago,
too
isto aqui é
little?
o melhor
I mean,
sítio para ver.
is that when you talk about taking action? Is that the kind of action, or what kind of action might really meet the moment?
Is there something I can do with my contacts, with my experience, with my skill set? What can I uniquely do?
I
I
know.
hope everyone's asking themselves that
Fogo.
question. And one of my very close
Mano,
friends,
não sei.
Aurora James, and I were
What?
having a conversation when all the protests were kicking off about what we want to see from companies. Because we were starting to see all the we stand
Tipo,
with
o
the
vídeo
Black
parou,
community, and
simplesmente.
Black Lives Matter was starting to come from companies that we're just like,
A meu
how in
vídeo
the
não
world
parou.
is this
Mas as legendas sim.
this corporation when they have 0 Black people in their executive leadership team?
Tipo, a mim
Something's
parou
not
as
adding up.
legendas
And
e
so
tudo.
we sat there and we
Mas tipo,
thought
mim
para
about
mim a
what is
tela,
it that
tipo,
what
para
is
mim
our
a tela
ask to
ficou
brands?
preta.
So
Completamente
Aurora
preta.
James
Para mim
is
não.
A
my
mim não,
dear
a mim
friend,
ficou-
and she is a
ficou lá o
Black
vídeo e
business
só tirou
owner. She's a
as
successful
legendas.
accessories designer.
Ah,
She
já
and I
sei porque é que
spoke, and
parou.
she
É
decided
porque
igual
depois
não tem
muito mais para
legendas.
baixo aquilo não
I
dá.
want to start something. And
Right,
this is what
porque tem as
this is
legendas
the kind of
desligadas.
origin story for what became the 15% pledge. And now the 15% pledge, which Aurora James founded, and I'm working with her on, it's saying to corporations,
Ai.
specifically big box
Porra.
retailers, you
Tá
need
ali,
to
só
go
que tá
beyond
aquilo.
making a
Espera aí,
statement,
ok, não percebe inglês.
stand
não
in
tem.
solidarity with the Black community. You need to go beyond even a one-time donation. What we are
Ali
asking
embaixo.
for is 15% of your shelf space to be dedicated to supporting Black businesses,
O meu ping
Black-owned
pode subir pouco,
businesses.
mas.
That is a
That's great.
big ask. And the reason we decided 15% is because 15% of the population, nearly 15% of the population is Black. So let's see
Right.
ourselves represented equally on your shelves. And it has
amazing.
been 3 weeks, and this thing has already exploded. It has gotten so much momentum, which is so exciting to see. Listen, I hope that we can empower Black business owners because they are the
You are.
most impacted during the coronavirus. And for anybody who's watching and wants to get involved with the 15% pledge, I really encourage you to go to the website 15percentpledge.org and sign the petition. So help us keep the pressure on these companies to continue to fuel money, to put money back into the Black community. And if all 4 of these retailers that we're targeting take this pledge, this will mean over $14 billion being funneled back into the Black community. So it is a really big mission, and we're really excited about the impact that we can make if we all come together and push brands to do the right thing right now.
Well, listen, I also want to thank you for what you're doing. I want to thank you for what you've been an educator, you've been an inspirer. Now you're somebody who's actually pioneering a pathway forward. You've got a commitment from these corporations because you have a commitment in yourself to change. And I hope other people take inspiration from you. Thank you so much for being here. We're behind you 100%. 100%.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you, and you too. I'm such a fan of the work that you do. You're such an important voice, and I'm a fan. I keep doing what you're doing too. This is an honor to be interviewed by you, so thank you.
Hip hop is a universal sound, but it does a lot more than just entertain. Hip hop educates, hip hop motivates. It's the voice of a generation, and every generation finds a voice in hip hop. And this new generation is no different. Atlanta artist Lil Baby has really stepped up to the plate. He's got a new song he penned in the middle of all this. It's called The Bigger Picture, and he put some visuals to it. Check out the video.
Bazuca cabeça! Bazuca cabeça! Bazuca cabeça! Bazuca cabeça!
Ele está a ser sobre cabeça em som.
Mas ficou bem a música. Olha, Tiago, estou no melhor sítio possível. Estou em cima daquela cena de mudar roupa.
Atlanta has been the epicenter really of a lot of change over the years, and especially nowadays. It's interesting to see how Lil Baby taps into the Atlanta right now and brings it to the screen. I mean, that is 2020. That is what it looks like right now in that town. And I think he did a beautiful job of capturing it. I think the lyrics of this thing are just off the charts. He's in Jay-Z territory at this point, Bob Dylan territory at this point. It's bigger than black and white. It's a problem with the whole way of life. It can't change overnight. That's a whole political theory. That's college. I mean, it's not just a racial issue. It's a whole bunch of other issues going on. It takes time to change things. There's a level of wisdom there. And I think it just comes out. This generation has seen so much already. They've gone through so much already. They know it's not a simple thing. It's going to take a long time. But that's different than Fight the Power. My generation, our anthems were all like, we're going to turn it over today. We're going to make change tomorrow. I think this is a new twist on hip-hop politics coming through in the song. You can't have without political music. It's just never happened. You go back to the labor movement, civil rights movement, women's rights movement. You always have musicians and artists step up because a revolution is a change of heart first. Before anything else changes in law and politics and government, in the economy, the first change has to be in the human heart. And that's what art does. Art moves you. Music moves you. And move this whole country forward and to move this cause forward. All right, my girl Jamel Hill is going to take over for me. She gets the honor. I'm kind of jealous, but she gets the honor of talking to and interviewing the great Killer Mike. He is an author. He's an actor. He's an activist. He's a musician. He's a living legend. Listen to Killer Mike.
I hope everybody out there has just been taking copious notes, gaining a lot of knowledge, taking some screenshots, because there's just been a lot of really good nuggets that have been shared. Hope you're inviting all your friends in and really having the kind of conversation in this country I certainly have not seen in my lifetime. And I'm curious to hear the thoughts of my guest right now, Killer Mike. You know, Mike, we've been at this moment many times in our country where tragedy has struck. And about this, seen these videos before, but right now it feels like the world is just changing right before our very eyes. I can kind of imagine how some of our you know, our elders felt during the civil rights movement, to see the world just
Olha,
change
Berna,
right
então.
before our eyes. So you're there in Atlanta, where certainly there was a recent incident with Rashard Brooks. We've been
Berna.
absorbing everything that's been happening in the country up until this moment. So how are you kind of handling all of this emotionally right now?
Ok, tudo bem.
Man, as an American, it's
Agora não
hard
esqueça.
because it's just it's a growing pain
Tchau,
of
Berna.
sorts. You know what I mean? We know that our country is progressing. We know that on the other side of that progression, that we all are going to be better. I think our
Zé,
community
foi só
and
trocar de roupa,
people
por amor de Deus.
who are
Coloca lá o
essentially
vídeo outra vez.
descendants of the
Eu acho
cornerstone
que
of
já
this
sei
nation.
porque que o
The
Berna foi
cornerstone of
embora.
this nation is the Constitution is important.
Why?
The founding fathers was important.
Por causa
But
do
free
documentário.
labor
Estamos a ver o documentário, ele não
allowed
quer
all
ver.
that to stay. And
Quanto
Desumilde.
as the
preço?
descendant of a
Yeah,
slave,
isso que eu estava a
and when I
dizer, é
say
para tu
descendant, I
resumir.
don't mean anything wrong.
Desumilde.
My great grandmother taught me how to sew
Ok.
a button on a shirt as she was sewing blankets that we still use in my house.
O
Her
elétrico
mother
só
was
está a
sewing
trocar de
shirts.
skin.
So that's
Está
how
a
close
achar
slavery is.
divertido.
I know how
Ele
to sew a
não
button
está a
because
gostar
a
do
slave
documento,
taught her
só
child
está a
to,
gostar de
and
trocar de
that child
skin.
taught me to.
Já
That's
ouvi
how
com
close.
3
So
skins.
Cala
I
a
think
boca,
that I'm
Zazocas.
excited that progress is happening, but I know on the other side
Cala
of
a
that
boca.
progression,
É muito
Rihanna,
verdade. Já te vi com 3
Floyd,
Cala a
skins.
boca.
brother that was
Não.
killed here, there are martyrs. And we've long been martyrs for the progression of this country. And I hope that as we enter into another martyrdom, another black person has died at the hands of the state. I hope that we enter this coming out determined to see justice
Mas
on the
espera, eu
front
estou a
end,
falar
and not only
daquele
when we're
gajo negro
angry.
que
I hope
morreu nas
that
mãos da
coming
polícia.
out of this, the young
Floyd.
people that are in the streets
Yeah.
organizing,
Mas houve
continue to
mais.
organize in the
Esse
time
já
of
foi há
peace
uns anos.
like they are in time of war, because they're organizing effectively. They're causing systemic change in the immediate and not some protracted campaign. And I support that. And plot, plan, strategize, organize, and mobilize. And as long as you keep doing that, you're going to capitalize off the gains that you're making. And I appreciate, and I don't mean capitalize in a monetary way. I mean, these kids are capitalizing, progressing. Organizers on the ground root level who've been working for years to campaign around police brutality and violence have in an instant been able to organize people to progress law.
Yeah, it's been a lot of impressive moments. I mean, you mentioned about how the young people, they're so organized, because I think about the progression from, say, Ferguson to now, and it's been pretty outstanding when you think about it. What has impressed you the most about what you're seeing right now?
What has impressed me? That in '92, we rioted in Atlanta. There were riots in other cities. There were riots in Los Angeles. But there was such a stronghold on information. Local news wouldn't let what other cities know until after it was over. What's impressed me is the ability to use technology. We haven't gotten as efficient as Hong Kong, but it's coming. You are seeing at a day and age where in an instant people are able to mob on a place, people are able to say what needs to be said and go and get ghosts. You're seeing in an instant what our grandparents were able to do. Like we have a house party app in which people can sit down on that house party app. You can organize with those 8 people to know what are we going to do in school, what are we going to do in local school boards, what are we going to do with city council. Our grandparents used to have to do that in the basement. Now you're able to do it over your phones and organize effectively and immediately. So I'm impressed by the level of organization I've seen. Because when I was an organizer at 15, 16 years old, we'd have to literally meet for 30 days to plan something that you might strike that might be 3 hours or even 30 minutes. But you're constantly there. These kids are able to do it, and these young people and these organizers are able to do it in a blink of an eye. But that only happens when you train like Floyd Mayweather. Organizers are like Mayweather. They never not train, and I think that these are the people, again, that we should be looking to follow in these times.
But you dropped a mention of the House Party app. Mike, are you on House Party? You use it?
I just found out about it. I got the cool people in my life hooked me to what's new. The two apps I'm most interested in right now are House Party, and there's an app called Convos that allows me to speak directly back and forth with people. That's a lot cooler than sometimes Twitter where stuff gets lost in translation. But you know, I'm still over there tweeting with the angry moms and dads. Shouts out to the old folks.
I think about where activism was on this issue in particular when Ferguson happened, and looking at it now, and it's while there was definitely a lot of positives that came out of Ferguson, particularly the Black Lives Matter movement. Seeing the level and the difference is that clearly there was a lot of lessons learned there, and they've applied them now, and so it definitely seems much more cohesive, and that's been impressive. What has impressed you about what you're seeing, especially from these young people who really have seemed to seize this moment?
What I've seen be most beautiful about this time is kids have the ability to adjust and move and be like water. They're truly plotting, planning, strategizing, organizing, and mobilizing. The skateboard kids came in. Usually you would see in the 60s, black people look like me. We make public protests. We get our heads split open. Sympathetic whites and allies and people who truly believe in freedom, justice, and equality entered the stage. Now, not only are you beating black people, you're dragging off white people. And it became a tapestry, a unified front to give us our most basic civil rights and acknowledge our human rights. That tapestry is happening again. And it's happening in a bigger and better way. I was talking about those skateboard kids. I saw those kids first come in as defenders. When police were hacking with people with batons, they held up the skateboards to protect them. Most kids who skateboard, my kids skateboard, because most skateboard kids in the South don't look like me, right? But I saw the skateboard community literally come in and save protesters from beatings, and then they got really frisky and they started attacking back. And I was like, this is, although I don't want violence in the streets because those kids deserve to grow to be adults without being soldiers against the state that their parents pay taxes to. It impressed me that the proletariat showed government that you work for us. And in this moment, we are exercising our right to make public display of the evil that has happened. It makes me proud that I live in a country that has long promised equality, rarely given it to people who look like me. People who don't look like me defended.
You made an interesting note and observation about the skateboard crew. And I think anybody who's watching has noticed that it's not just black people who are out here protesting.
No, it's not. It's a tapestry of people.
It's a tapestry of people.
The Amish. The Amish.
Yeah. Wasn't that crazy?
I didn't even know the Amish saw the news.
I was thinking, who told them? Right? I was like, how did right?
I was so impressed though. I was so thankful. My heart was filled with joy.
Yeah, so you're seeing all these different types of people that you never thought this issue would resonate with them. It kind of reminds me of your music. Your music is unapologetically pro-black, unapologetically, right?
Absolutely.
But yet, when you look at a Killer Mike fan, it's across multicultural section of people. Why do you think your music is able to resonate that way, despite the fact that you are also clearly talking to your people?
Yeah, I'm proud to be me. I like me. I like black people. I'm not making no excuses. I'm not making no apologies coming in the door. I love us. I am in love with us. And because I love me, it has nothing to do or affecting my love of others. I have a very good friendship with East Indian cousins, Raj and Neil. They own the store right next to Walters on what's happening. So if you're from Atlanta, you know about Walters. If you're a big guy from Atlanta, you know about, the store right next door. These guys have always just been good to me. Raj went to India. He came back, brought my wife incense, these beautiful little elephant characters. He's proud to be Indian. I've learned about being Indian from my Indian friend. When you're truly who you are, how could you be offended? How could you not love it or like it? Like, man, I'm a part of the original people on earth. I'm from the continent that birthed all humanity. I think when you wear that proudly and unapologetically, and not from a place of needing someone to be below you, there's no reason for people not to like me. I like you. I got plenty of heroes that don't look like me. There's a portrait of John Brown on my wall.
Se tu te aproximares disto, o teu pinto fica super alto, Zé. Meu Deus.
I refuse to act like people who look like me aren't great. I didn't say good. I didn't say good enough. I didn't say equal. I said great. I'm from a great and mighty
Ficou
people.
preto.
And if you can't accept that, then maybe I'm not for you. But I believe that because I am simply who I am, I believe that that gets accepted. Because you know what? I remember being on the tour bus, and I'm on there with a bunch of Northeasterners because of course, my rap partner's a white guy from Brooklyn. And we're on there and they're watching Swamp People, and everybody's laughing. And I come up and stagger into the front, and I look at it and I start smiling, and I look at the room and say, I got more in common with them than any of y'all. And I just walk to the back. Now, because it's the truth. I'm a Southern
A
boy.
cara
My
dela a
grandparents
rir,
from
foi
Alabama and
isso.
rural Georgia.
E
I
ela
grew
assim,
up more like people on those shows.
mas
So
é
I
estranho.
think
O meu primo,
across
o Simão,
cultural
acho que
lines and
também
across
ri assim um
racial
bocado.
lines,
Às
people
vezes.
identify with me, but just because I'm your typical American guy.
Bora lá ficar
You
com
know
o
what I
filho
mean?
todo
And I have
mamado.
some special things. I'm not going to deny that I'm special. I was a smart kid, went to Morehouse, had an understanding of some cool stuff. I married a beautiful woman. That helps, But I think that ultimately what resonates with people is that I'm a regular guy. One of my best friends in the world is a white guy from Brooklyn. So I think that people understand that I have the
Tipo, também dá
ability
para ver
not
daqui
to
de
look
trás.
past your race or ethnicity, not to look past who you are culturally, but to look at it and love it and learn from it without wanting to co-opt it or be it.
What you're talking about in a very succinct and robust way is really allyship. And that's been a
Absolutely.
word that, yeah, you have a lot of, it sounds like you have a lot of really great allies that are in your life. Now in this moment, I've gotten the question constantly. I assume you have too about how to be an ally. What do I have to do? Right? I've had so many conversations with white people, like really good friends of mine in the last
Yeah.
2 weeks where all right, guys, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but
Yeah, but hold on.
hold on a second, just relax. But
Absolutely.
nevertheless, that being said, is that
Geopolitical.
what would you say to somebody who wants to not only be an ally
What
but
the
be a
fuck?
good
Why?
ally?
If you want to be a good ally in this moment, white corporation, white
Isso.
person with the means, that's
Percebes o
a
que eu estou
worthy
pensando?
allyship. On a ground level, if you're just working hard every week, you don't know what to do, you're an electrician, you're a plumber, grab one young man who doesn't look like you, a young woman, and teach them that trade. That's allyship. Allyship isn't just throwing the money, but if you got the big money, put it towards somewhere. But on a very real and basic level, my son had an accident with a man named Keith. I bought my son a car. My son Malik, with a very pretty girl in the front seat, rear-ended this guy. Calls me. I pull up to Keith and the police officer. I say, if he'll allow me to handle this privately, I just don't want to call my insurance company because, I had just got in an accident for I drive fast. My son, Keith, in good faith, gave me the opportunity to do that. And me and this man became friends. I'm literally friends with this white man who told me about Atlanta pre-white flight and desegregation, who's taught me about fatherhood and the importance of presence in your child's life. That doesn't happen if we're not open for it to happen. So an allyship with white people doesn't have to be an organization of saving the world. But you do have to do what me and Keith did. You do have to, on blind faith, trust someone who doesn't look like you and allow that person to educate you. So an allyship is not just calling your black friend saying what I do. It's going to black organizations that might be local and saying, what am I doing? It's calling your friend and saying, what's the next thing you're doing? And I want to be an extra set of hands. Doesn't mean you get to go to the black people meeting, but it does mean that they say, I'm going to feed people on Skid Row. You show up. And you show up with empathy and care and you do it. And I'm going to tell you, we need doctors in that space. We need lawyers in that space. We need legislators in that space. We need the people who are really empowered to be in that space because there's some things that need to happen on ground level that once the grassroots people have gotten it here, there needs to be
Hoje o
money
evento é
put
o quê?
behind these things. A lot of the
Hoje o
problems that we
evento
have now that are erupting could have been
comentário
solved
do
in
quê? Do
96,
racismo.
2006, 2016, and all
Melhor eles
those other
falassem
years,
do
but we
Covid
chose
também.
not to
O
because we trusted
racismo
the right
deles,
thing was going to happen. Right thing's not going to
pelo
happen
menos
for
cá,
some
lá
people.
nos Estados
And
Unidos eu
after
sei.
that, you
Cá
have the
os pretos
potential
são
to
mais
truly be
racistas
brothers
que
and
os brancos.
sisters. You have the potential to
Qual é
be
que eles deviam falar?
past the letting cultural,
Eu não sou
national,
contra isso,
religious
tudo bem.
markers
Deviam falar era do
defeat the
Covid.
fact that I know that I'm talking
Percebes?
and I'm with a
57
human
mil ontem
being,
nos
and at
Estados
our
Unidos.
very core, past any physical
Mais
difference, my
57
job
mil.
is to honor the
Está
soul of
bonito,
that
tá?
other human
Isso é que eles
being.
deviam
So
falar.
I'm
Bateram o
not
recorde
for
ontem.
war. I truly have a brother and sister. There's no need to have an ally because there's no threat of war. I refuse to send any 18-year-old boy or girl off to die. And that has to be something that's much, much deeper than policy, much, much deeper than the human condition in the last 500 years. We have to get back to that. So that's my humble opinion. I don't know, where that takes white America, but I hope you stay standing up, fighting together.
Mike, we've been having this great conversation, and a lot of people watching, they probably want to know, because again, these things happen in flashes where 1 minute we're talking about this, everybody's fired up, everybody's willing to do things, and then the next minute, the momentum dies. So how can the people who are watching now, how can they keep this conversation, this action, this momentum going?
Take this conversation, get 8 to 10 people around you, your neighbors and people who live within 10 square miles, and start to see what you can do to affect. And then connect with other people that may be in closer proximity, 30, 40, 50 miles, even another city or places that are doing it right in other places. Connect with those people and just if all of us do a little, no one has to do a lot. If all of us do a little, if all of us pick a little to do, no one will have to do a lot.
That's a word right there. If we all do a little bit, nobody has to do a lot.
Has to do a lot, absolutely.
Nobody has to do a lot. Mike, I have enjoyed this conversation like I enjoy every conversation with you. I can certainly talk to you. Yes, it is mutual. The mutual respect and love in society right here. Thank you. And more importantly, thank you for everything you do on the ground. I mean, so many people, I knew that you tell the truth the way it needs to be told, but a lot of people during this time of crisis have been exposed to you and understand that, you really are for the people. This is called We the People. This is you all day long. So thank you for all the work and all the inspiration, all the words, everything that you're adding to this conversation, and more importantly to this action. With that said, we have to say goodbye, but we don't have to get out of here just yet, because I'm gonna toss this on to my brother, Van Jules, who can take it from here.
Jamel and I, we spent the past hour, we've been talking to Killer Mike, we've been talking to Elaine Walteroth. We also got a chance to see that amazing video from Lil Baby. Jamel, what did you get from your conversation with Killer Mike? And more importantly to me, what do you make of this moment that we're in?
The one thing you can always expect from Killer Mike is blunt honesty. I think that's why a lot of people look at him as a really credible voice right now. He's honest about what he knows and honest about what he doesn't know. So I think when you have those elements, that's going to always make for a pretty good conversation. I'm with you. I mean, this moment at the same time is welcome. It's also a little bit surreal in terms of what took us so long to get here, to make sure that we're not always starting from ground zero every time we have to have a significant conversation about race in this country.
Why do you think it's different this time? Because there have been videos before, and yet people still now act like they're shocked. Help me understand what's different this time from your point of view. What's your theory?
It's two things that I think stood out about the George Floyd video. One, there was no yeah, but. And granted, in my mind, we've seen videos where there was no yeah, but people nevertheless invented a yeah, but. But in this one, there really wasn't one, even if you were Stretch Armstrong trying to stretch and find one, there just wasn't one. What always has just stuck with me is the look on this officer's face as he was kneeling on George Floyd's neck. It was so cold. It was as if this were Thursday. And he showed such little emotion, remorse, any emotion you want to name. He didn't show any of that as he killed a man in the middle of the street with bystanders looking on. So I think that situation had already been, and even though the situation wasn't fatal, there was definitely a storm of frustration at what happened with Christian Cooper. So this all together leads us to this moment where finally, even the most adamant naysayers who wanted to pretend as if, what could they say? There was nothing else that could be said, and I think everybody who was already fed up decided now is the moment, now is the time. The world has slowed down because of COVID-19. If we are going to address this needs to happen now.
I've never seen 20, 30 million white people asking black people for leadership. That's interesting because they start, well, what do you want me to do? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Google is a powerful tool. I don't know. I'm realizing now, though, that this is an honest question. How do you think that we as African Americans and our allies can rise to meet a moment like this and actually a million new allies? And how do we deal with that? That's new for us.
I'm glad you used the word leadership because there's a difference between us being put in a leadership position and us being put in an educational position. The educational part, we are long past, right? Like we don't want to be educating anybody else about race. We're not here to soothe you. We're not here to make you feel better. But leadership is something different. And it looks different depending on how you want us to take that leadership. Certainly, we are accustomed to being a voice on these issues. We're accustomed to setting the agenda. It's fine if we continue to lead in that direction. I think what we're looking for is if this were, a relay race, we want to pass the baton and we want you to be able to say, okay, here's what we've been feeling about this issue. Here's what needs to happen to change it. The other part of this race is that you got to be willing to run it just as hard and as fast as we are. Because if you're not, that's why we remain stuck in the flying pattern that we've been in for hundreds of years and decades as we've tried to reconcile this issue. So we have to figure out what is the most useful way of allyship. We see a lot of people throwing statements around. We see a lot of people throwing money around. We need that to be a focused effort, and more importantly, to be vocal about it. I can't I can't take any more double-sidedness. There can be no more other siderisms. If I may make up a word, meaning that you give over here and you're a company that is like, yeah, Black Lives Matter, except for in my boardroom where they don't, or except for in my organizational chart where they don't. So I'm done with that, right? That's great. Charity's great. Charity doesn't change structural racism, right? What changes it is when you actively look in your building and ask, why aren't there more Black people in this building, in this boardroom, in this C-suite? So the allies that we have, what you can do, change the structure and cultures of your companies, of your businesses, of wherever it is you have influence. Start there.
The thing I try to tell people is, it puts us in a no-win situation. I want our white sisters and brothers to be better educated and to care more, but I don't want to have to bear the burden of trying to teach and educate all the time. The reason you pay tuition is because it's costly to educate someone. You coming up to me and saying, educate me, that's costly to me emotionally and from a time point of view. Also, I think we have to be very honest. Nobody would go up to somebody and say, teach me Russian in 5 minutes. And by the way, make me feel good about it. But I mean, wait, hold on a second. Like, you want me to teach you about racism, which is the history of race in America is just as complicated as Russian. And you want me to teach you that in 5 minutes. And also, if I make you feel bad about it in any way, now I got to be your therapist too. And like you said, soothe you or whatever. That's got to stop. I would love for somebody to come to me and say, I made my whole family watch the 13th and read The New Jim Crow and read White Fragility, and we had a question on page 52. Now, hey, we can have that conversation all day long because you're doing your homework, but don't flop on me like you never heard of Google. If you wanted to know about cryptocurrencies or whatever, you find that stuff out before any Black person ever heard of it. So I'm sure you can educate yourself about anything you want to know. I have to say something to you because I've never gotten a chance to talk to you. I feel like I know you because I'm such a big, mad, crazy Stan and fan. But I love you to death. I just am so proud of you. I'm saying proud of you almost as Patrick. I am so proud that you exist. Where do you find the strength to continue to do what you're doing and say what you're saying, even in the face of opposition, to the point where now the whole world has to listen to you? Where did you find the strength when they weren't listening?
I guess maybe this is just part of the Black woman's condition is that we don't know any other way. And most of us, I come from a line of Black women who were just like this. My mother's like this. My grandmother was like this, where it's the old phrase we've all used as Black people, making a way out of no way. And screaming till they hear you. You know what I'm saying? Is that because the opposite, to do the opposite of that is that I can't even afford to do that. I don't know any other mode but to fight for what's right, but to try to stand on the right side of history, but to speak for people who don't have a voice or a platform as large as mine because somebody did it for me.
What advice do you have for people who want to have these
Esta visão
conversations, maybe
aqui
not
para
as
o
well
comentário está
spoken, not
bem
as
boa,
well
está em
read
primeira pessoa,
as you
não
might
tenho
be, but who
personagem à
really are
frente.
sincere and want to have a conversation.
I think you have to start from a point of honesty and being real about what some of
Pois
your
é, olha
beliefs,
que
prejudice, biases are, where they come
Como é que
from,
tu
why you
dizes
learned
quando tem
them.
em primeira pessoa?
I think if you take anything else
Então,
beyond race,
tipo,
as we get
enquanto está
older,
uma
we
parede,
do a whole lot of unlearning.
até
Young
ficar em
folks, when you get
opa,
to like your
sai da
30s, you do a
frente as
whole lot of
ocas.
that, right? But yeah, my
Tenho que
advice
estar
is
aqui
to
um
always
fogo.
start from the point of truth and honesty and
É, não é?
self-awareness.
Já
And you'd be
fiz.
surprised what you can get
Já,
on
agora
É
já
top
Só
fiz.
um
of
otário
just
novo.
by
Não.
digging into those things. I mean, if you know you come from a racist background, or if you come from where race was talking about a certain way, be honest about what those conversations were and what they taught you. And ask yourself, is this the kind of person that you really want to be?
Yeah, you know, I feel like there's a 21st century mindset and a 21st century skill set that
Eu vou comer